Okay, let's be real. Some anime are cool, and then there's Soul Eater. The anime that made sight stylish, turned Halloween into an aesthetic, and gave us one of the most chaotic but lovable casts in anime history. From the very first episode, Soul Eater grabs you with its art style, its, this kind of punk rock attitude, and that unforgettable opening. For real, that opening is beautiful. You know the one, you know it. Soul Eater. Yeah, if you know, you know. If you know, you know. But behind the wild visuals and Tim Burton vibes, there's this surprisingly deep story about madness, fear, friendship, and growth. So today I thought we'd talk about it. We're diving deep into why Soul Eater is still one of the coolest, weirdest, and most memorable anime of all time. Let's get into it. Soul Eater takes place in Death City, this surreal gothic world where the supernatural is the norm, and the Grim Reaper himself, Lord Death, runs a school for young fighters. The school is called DWMA, the Death Weapon Meister Academy. That's a cool name, for real. So here's a twist. Students are divided into two types: Meisters, who wield weapons, and weapons, who are human, who look like humans that can turn into weapons. Like literally, they look like human beings that can turn into weapons. Think boy turns into a scythe and a girl swings him around to fight demons. Like basically, that's how it is. Yeah, that's what we're dealing with. So the goal: collect the souls of evil humans and witches to make the weapon powerful enough to become a death sight, basically. A weapon worthy of being used by Lord Death himself. But of course, nothing is ever that simple, An ancient evil is rising, madness is spreading like a virus, and as students of DWMA start to confront the horrors of the world and the ones inside themselves at the same time, the tone of the story kind of shifts. It gets darker. It starts a bit more quippy, a bit more fun, cartoony kind of anime. The animation doesn't change, but it starts like that, the vibe, but it gets dark like real fast. That's when Soul Eater kind of becomes more than just an edgy action anime. It becomes something more personal. Let's talk about the characters, because honestly, the cast, they carry the show. They're so interesting and quirky, for real. We'll talk about them because each Meister has their own weapon or weapons. So we'll talk about the main ones. First we have Maka Alban and Soul Evans, aka Soul Eater. Maka is our main Meister. She's the main protagonist. She's serious, driven, and kind of a nerd. Soul is her weapon partner, a scythe with serious cool guy energy. For real, you get it from him immediately you see him. But their dynamic is the heart of the show. Maka wants to prove she's not like her father, a womanizing mess of a death site. And Soul just wants to be cool, to be honest, but struggles with, intense self-doubt, so he has to find confidence in himself. Together, they learn how much trust matters between a Meister and weapon, the connection, how trust boosts their powers and makes them stronger. Because one misstep could kill them both, so they have to learn how to coordinate with each other and trust each other. Black Star is, he's a lot. He's egotistical and he wants to be the strongest, but underneath the arrogance is a boy who carries trauma and wants to protect others. Tsubaki, his weapon, is actually the opposite. She's quiet, composed, and emotionally mature. Their duo is about balance, finding balance between two of them, emotionally and physically. It's finding balance in the calm and in the chaos, finding how does ego and humility, how do they balance each other, how do they find a way to work together. Then we have Death the Kid and the Thompson sisters. Death the Kid is the funniest in the whole show for me because of his obsession with symmetry. For real, it's crazy. Everything must be symmetrical and equal and arranged and well organized. It's so crazy to see how it nearly blows his mind, like in some severe case of OCD or something. The Thompson sisters' names are Liz and Patty, and they are funny and quirky. Kid is literally, he's the son of Death, powerful, serious, and completely obsessed with symmetry. Like I said, he'll stop a fight to fix a painting, honestly, if it's off center. Liz and Patty are twin pistols from the streets of Brooklyn. Honestly, so wild out. This show is so crazy. Their bond with Kid creates some of the funniest interactions in the whole story, but it's also very, surreal. They have a lot of heartfelt moments throughout the show that kind of bring the emotion of the show to. It's not just about edginess and all that, it's about heart too. Then we have other characters like Lord Death and the Death Sight and the bad guys, the witch. There's some other cool characters that are not given as much screen time, but they are important to the story too, and you see how everything unfolds with them, how they interact with the story. So the characters are very interesting. There's not much to say about them because I don't want to give you everything. I want you to watch the show and experience them for yourself. And if you have watched the show, you know what I'm talking about. There's a lot. I know it just seems like some edginess central, but no. There's a lot in the story with the characters. The characters are deeper. They're not shallow, and they will keep you engaged. Soul Eater's vibe, it doesn't just tell you it's different, it shows you. The art style is sharp, it's exaggerated, and filmed with different angles, wide angles, and bold shadows, that give it its own weird, nice aesthetic, It's clearly inspired by Western cartoons like The Nightmare Before Christmas, but also has that chaotic anime energy that we love. The world is stylized to the max. The sun and the moon have this creepy. When you see the yellow moon smiling blood and the sun rises and starts smiling, grinning on his face, it's crazy. The buildings are pointy and bendy, like they're alive. The animation is fluid and it's wild during fights. And when the madness kicks in, the visuals go crazy. But in the best way, One of the show's biggest themes is also madness versus order. Characters fall into madness when they lose control of fear, ambition, or even grief. It's portrayed visually as swirling eyes, distorted laughter, and surreal sequences. Even our heroes brush against madness themselves. Soul is infected by it. Maka has to face it, and Kid, born of death, is terrified of becoming it. This theme, it runs deep because in Soul Eater, fighting evil isn't just about punching harder, it's about keeping your soul together, and that hits different. That is a very good theme that I think you should take away after watching it. So, I think that Soul Eater is one of those anime that's imperfect, of course, but it's unforgettable. It has its flaws. The ending of the anime is kind of rushed, especially compared to the manga, but some characters, they do get sidelined, and sometimes it leans into just being too edgy, but I think all those things are a bit of nitpicks. I think when it does things right, it does it very right. The style is timeless. You can watch it even today. The fights are explosive. The themes are darker and deeper than you actually realize. For real, it's very interesting. So I think it's one of those shows that you should give a chance if you haven't watched it. I think you should add it to your anime watch list. It'll keep you engaged. It's a good story, beautiful characters, and I think you won't regret watching Soul Eater. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Have you watched this show? Have you watched it? Are you looking forward to watching it? Did you even know about it? Let me know your thoughts, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.